So what is the aim of a balanced life? I think we can fairly and simply conclude that all of us want a balanced life for only three things. We want to be happy, we want to be satisfied, we want to be peaceful. If any one of you comes and tells me that the aim of being a balanced person is to be depressed, dissatisfied, and disturbed, I would be very concerned, right? And so would you. We all want this. The only question is, how do we get this? If we are balanced in our life, ask people who are balanced. They will tell you that their relationships are peaceful. They will tell you that they have peace of mind, even though they are in the midst of so much movement. They will tell you that even though challenging situations are there, because they are balanced, they know how to handle these situations. They will tell you that their decisions somehow or another, either by consulting people or by being guided by higher principles, become better. They know how to manage their time because they are balanced in life. And most important, they are clear about their vision. They know exactly what they want, and they know that they have to achieve it. So being balanced, these are the symptoms of balance. They're very helpful for us because we can check against these symptoms and ask ourselves whether we are at that stage or we need to get to that stage. Now, how do we get to this stage? I'm going to spend 10-15 minutes now, and then I'm going to wrap up. You remember we saw this at the very beginning? We know that there are four balances which are very important, and all of us agree with that in this world. Mentally, physically, socially, emotionally. These are all important balances. But the one balance that sometimes becomes a bit tricky is what we call the spiritual balance. The spiritual balance is the fulcrum. And when we talk about fulcrum, we say that the spiritual balance is actually the key for all the other balances to stay in place. Now, I just want to share with you the meaning of the word spiritual. The meaning is very simple actually. If you look at spiritual, it's made up of spirit and ritual, right? If you put them together, it becomes spiritual. If you do something day in, day out, say you brush your teeth every morning, most of the time brushing your teeth becomes your daily ritual. But it doesn't become spiritual because it's not like you're thinking of the essence of toothbrushing. You're not thinking about why I should brush my teeth. You're not putting your heart into it because most of the time you're thinking as you're brushing your teeth, what should I do for the rest of the day? So it becomes a ritual. You may come to a temple, for example. You may have a temple in your house also. Many of us do. And you may wake up in the morning and say, first thing I have to do is I have to pray. And after a while you may pray. But if your heart is not in the prayer, it becomes a ritual. I quickly have to finish it and I have to move on. In the evening, I have to do a puja because today is an auspicious day, let's do it. When we start doing things which we term spiritual, but they're actually ritual, we lose the fulcrum. That's why I'm using the word spiritual. That's why the Geeta uses the word spiritual, as opposed to the word religious. There are many people who may be very religious about something, but religion, to be deeper, requires spirit. You need to put your spirit into something. If you were to come today and sit down and hear this, you could either decide, I'm just here because I have to just be here, or you could put your heart into it and open your minds and try and see whether this works for me or not. So therefore, spiritual fulcrum is not simply about an external manifestation of an activity. It's actually an internal transformation. Right? It's actually about putting your heart into doing something. Someone in the morning woke up very early and a team prepared beautiful garlands that you see here. They didn't buy the garlands from the shops, right? Over here, they buy flowers and they lovingly string the garlands and then they offer it to God. Now that act of stringing the garlands, if you ask the devotees to do it, they say that it gives them so much balance to their Sunday or to their Saturday, because that's the time when they can put their heart into it. And they know that they're connected to someone like God who is intensely spiritual. So therefore, when we talk about spiritual fulcrum, I'm not talking about a ritual. I'm talking about putting spirit into an action. That is the key for balance. There are 5 principles for spiritual balance that I want to leave with you today. The first is accept more and expect less. The second is the universe is your university. The third is the secret to satisfaction is the joy of service. And the fourth, please simplify and don't complicate your existence. You must understand the difference. We all must understand the difference between needs and wants. And last but not least, the principle of unity in diversity. Okay? Let's unpack them and see what they mean. You'll realize, and you'll realize this very quickly, that whatever I'm speaking to you is not rocket science. Most of you would have thought about these things and would have experienced them at some point. All I'm doing is giving coherence to it, so that you can take it back and think about it. More, accept more, and expect less. This is very important. Very often in our lives, what causes imbalance is when you expect something and you don't accept something for what it is. You cannot control many things outside of you. You know that. For example, if your mother says something, you expect her not to say it. If she says something that you don't expect, you become disappointed. But if you accept that this is your mother's nature and she's going to tell you something that way, and you accept it because it's coming from her, and you accept that this is the nature of the world, this is the nature of the person, then in expectation, you have anxiety and disappointment. But in acceptance, you become peaceful. That's a very important concept actually. So therefore, when we accept the nature of the world, we will realize that we become more balanced. And what is the nature of the world, by the way? You realize that in the Geeta, the nature of the world is given very nicely. It is known as a place which is temporary. Nothing in this world will last. The good news is you and I also will not last. And the good news is this talk will also not last. Right? Imagine this went on forever. You can't take it. Some people think, oh, I'm in love with someone and I can live with them forever and forever. As a lawyer, I also handle matrimonial issues. And I can tell you that is not true. Most people can only live with people for a while. Once they reach 40, 50 years old, they come to accept their spouses more than expect things from their spouses to maintain some sanity in their lives. Because they also, unknown to them, are living by this principle. Everything is temporary. Nothing will last. But the anxiety of losing something when you think it belongs to you is more difficult than accepting that it is never yours to begin with. It's very important. Alexander the Great was a good example. It's a historical example. When he was about to die, Alexander left in his will 3 wishes. The first wish was that at the point of my death, I want all the physicians who worked so hard to save me but obviously failed, I want them to become the pallbearers of my coffin. My second wish is I want to make sure that as I leave, my hands are left out of the coffin and they are bare and open for the world to see. And my third wish is that I want all the gold coins that I have found and conquered throughout the empires, I want it to be strewn across the streets for everyone to take. So naturally, those who were his close consultants asked him, Alexander, why 3 unusual requests? He said the first request is a reminder to everyone that even though you may have the best physicians in the world, you have the money to get the best physicians in the world, when your time is coming, your time is coming. Nothing is in your control. Therefore, it is important for us to accept that rather than to expect anything else. My second reason that I'm putting my hands out is to show everyone that though I am the world's greatest conqueror and I conquered riches beyond human imagination, I'm leaving with nothing in my hands. I can't carry anything with me. And the third one was the most interesting, because he said, I'm going to give all this gold to everyone else to show them that actually it means nothing to me. But you know what's the most unique thing? Even though everyone will realize that these coins also will not last forever, they'll jump and catch as much coins as they can anyway. They'll do it, because that is the nature of this world. We think that by plugging ourselves into something that can give us material happiness, we expect that we will have a very, very peaceful life. That is the day your imbalance starts. So this is a very saintly advice to expect less and to accept less. The Geeta defines this world as dukhalayam ashashvatam, a temporary world. And why is it full of misery? Not because the world is miserable, but because it is temporary and you want something permanent. The end result of that is always misery. For those of us who know that whatever we have it on borrowed time, what happens? We appreciate it more. Isn't it true? When you know that your loved ones are with you on borrowed time, every day that you spend with them is a day not to be taken for granted. So actually, when you live in this world with that consciousness of accepting people for who they are, because they won't be with us forever, be grateful for what we have. It may be little, it may be more. That brings regulation, and automatically that develops your spiritual fulcrum. That's very, very important. And the thing about the Geeta that's really nice is that it has a very interesting definition of misery. The Geeta says that misery, or rather, it has a very interesting definition of happiness. Happiness in this material world is defined as temporary cessation of misery. That's what it is. For example, if you have a headache and you take a paracetamol or a Panadol, you think the headache has gone away. But if you're in the medical field, they will tell you that your headache has merely been suppressed. It'll come back again anyway, which is why you have to go for the next round of Panadols 3 hours, 4 hours later. That's how we live in this world. The Geeta says, whatever that you get which is happiness, please remember that they are material by nature and they will not last forever. Sometimes for a single drop of honey, so to speak, we run so much and do so many things, but we don't realize that even that single drop of honey will not remain with us. It will very quickly be consumed. So therefore, it is very important to understand, live in such a way that you learn to accept things as they are. That becomes important. And one last point, you have to also accept the nature of the people around us under this field of acceptance. Have you noticed everyone has their own natures? You will notice that. If you've lived with someone long enough, you will know that even though a person may try to change their natures, sometimes it's very difficult, right? If he's angry, well, he will try very much with his anger management, but at some point he will explode. If someone is very calm, then no matter what you do, the person reverts back to their nature. So the Geeta says, actually, in the third chapter, the Geeta says, even a man of knowledge cannot change his nature. There's no need to suppress it, but there's a need to accept it. The faster you accept someone's nature, the better it is. Like this. Now, the second concept of the 5 principles is to treat this universe as a university. Why? It is about cultivating an attitude. If you want to build your spiritual fulcrum, it's good to have this idea that life is actually a journey. Sometimes we are so caught up with trying to reach a particular place that we forget to actually enjoy the journey itself, right? Especially when you go traveling in some countries where traveling is really nice, you drive. If you're so worried about driving to a destination that you forget to see the mountains, you forget to see the journey, then there's very little you're learning actually. So therefore, Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita tells us that if you want to achieve balance, don't just be in a rush just to achieve your goals. As you move on, you must also appreciate that life is actually a journey. It takes time. But the more positive you are, the more positivity you attract. And instead of blaming the whole world for problems that you have, a very, very learned, wise person is one who looks within. Why should I blame the world? Better I look within and see what I can do. You know, there's a very nice story in the Mahabharata. It's just 2 minutes, but it's very interesting. There was a king who was very pious, and he had a minister who was very close to him. The minister was a great devotee of God, and he had one attitude that the king liked. He would always tell the king, in any trying situation, see good in it. Find something positive. There's always something you can learn, because the universe is your university. So one day, the king and the minister and the entourage, they started going into the forest. The king had to hunt. Suddenly a lion came out, unexpected. And there was a battle between the king and the lion. The king defeated the lion, but he lost his tongue. All the other ministers came and expressed their pain at seeing the pain of the king losing his tongue. But this other minister told him, my dear king, you may have lost your tongue, but you still have your life. There's a reason, there must be a reason why you have lost your tongue. There is always a blessing behind everything. Learn from it. The king became very upset. Because if you lose your tongue, you're not really in a good mood to hear philosophy, isn't it? So he got tired of it. And immediately he said, bring this minister to jail. I don't want to see his face. So the minister was jailed. And the king proceeded in the forest. As he went deeper, he got separated from the rest of the entourage. But he was caught by a band of bandits. In India we call them dacoits. Dacoits caught hold of the king and brought him over to their village. And there they thought that they should sacrifice him as a human sacrifice for auspiciousness. Their priest was cleaning him up, getting him ready for sacrifice, when he realized that this object of sacrifice has a problem. He goes up to the king of the dacoits, not our king, and he says, we have a problem. According to our manual, if you want to offer something as a sacrifice, the person must be complete. Right? If you offer that person who is not complete, the whole sacrifice is inauspicious. This man has no tongue. Therefore, we have to free him. And the king was freed. He went straight back to the jail. He freed the minister. He embraced him. And he said, today I realized the value of losing my tongue. I never thought losing my tongue would save me. But today I realized that I can lose a tongue, but it doesn't mean that life is over. So the minister was very happy for the king. But the king had one last question. It was good that I lost my tongue. What good was it for you to be jailed? You were here suffering. And the minister had a good reply. He said, you know, king, that I would be inseparable from you. I would have been caught with you when you were caught by the dacoits. You would have been the first choice for a sacrifice because you're noble by birth. But they would have realized you're incomplete. They would then, of course, have a second choice. And that would be me. And I would be very complete. And therefore, I survived. It's a simple story that Bhagwad gives, but it tells you your attitude. If you look at the world from a viewpoint of learning, from a viewpoint of acceptance, then you'll find automatically opposing features of your life will come into balance because of your thought process, which is very important. Third, the joy of service. You know that in every culture that we have, right, whether it's Christianity, Islam, Hinduism, you find that there is always this mood of serving. Because actually we all have an innate propensity to serve. If I ask every one of you now to do some service somewhere, you'll all do it because it's in our heart. And we don't realize that every day, even without God being in our lives, we are serving people. We serve our parents, we serve our children, we serve those whom we love. We have to serve everyone. Sometimes we serve because we have to earn money, but the innate nature is to serve. And that's why it is stated that the best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the sincere service of others. Why is this important? Do we serve our mind and our senses? Or do we make our mind and senses serve us? If you allow the mind to dictate your nature, you will lose the joy of service. But if you control your mind in the regulated way that the Geeta says, your propensity for service will bring so much balance to your life. Many people find that they don't have the balance in their life because they haven't put aside time to just do some volunteering service, something that would benefit others without them taking something. It's a wonderful way to live actually, and that is why the joy of service is there. There is so much satisfaction when others, when others are satisfied. And don't forget, if you don't serve, you will end up serving your mind and your senses anyway. So better to make service a part of your life. And that service will give you and give others very, very much satisfaction. The other thing that's really important is sometimes when we serve, we expect results. But service by itself implies that the results are not important. It is the service that's important. The conscience should be peaceful that we have done our best. Outcome is never in our hands. If every one of us could decide the outcome of an endeavor, we'll all be excellent in what we do. Imagine if you had the power to decide exactly how much money you think you should make. You would be at the top of the ladder. If every project you took, you could decide the outcome, you'd be at the top of the ladder. But everyone knows that we can work very hard, but the outcome is not always in our hands. It is not. And that's why service is so important. Okay. The second last concept. Confucius Confucius is not confused. Huh? Confucius is a very famous philosopher, and some of his points are very nice. He says this: life is really simple, but we insist on making it complicated. How many times has that happened to you in your life? It's happened to me a lot. Okay? The problem when you have what you think is intelligence is that you misuse it. You think too much and overthink. Have you been in situations where before anything happened, you already have plan. Before you decided everything is done, then nothing happens. Right? It's ridiculous. There's a story also in our Shastras. There was this Gopal, he was in Bengal. And he was actually, he was a very poor Brahmana. But one day, he came across some inheritance. So he brought it back because his father had died and left something for him. Brought it back to his wife. And he started telling his wife, now we have this money, what shall we do? He said, now that we have this money, he was telling her, we'll buy 10 cows. In those days, cows means wealth, So we'll buy 10 cows and we'll take care of the cows very nicely. So he just took care of it, and nothing had happened yet. He was planning it. We'll buy cows, we'll take care of the cows. That's very good. And then after the wife started saying, oh yeah, but if we have the cows, right, at least out of the 10 cows that we have, 5 must go to my side. My parents, my brother, you've heard this before also, right? And then the neighbor, right, became very upset. The husband neighbor said, no, these 10 are for us. Why must it go to your family? Then I must send 5 to my family. And they started quarreling. Now, Gopal was their neighbor. And so he was thinking, why are they quarreling today? They're talking about cows. So he looked out, no cows. So he walked inside and said, what are you two quarreling about? And they said, we're going to have 10 cows. And she's already talking about her family. So I'm talking about my family. So Gopal looked around and said, where are the cows? And he said, no, we're just planning. Cows haven't come. We've got the money. Gopal said, hold on first. I'm coming back. Gopal went out. He went to his house. He came back. He had a stick. And he started beating the poor husband. And the wife said, why are you beating him? Gopal said, I'm beating him because 5 of the cows have walked into my property. And they're eating my grass. And they're eating all my fruits. And then the husband and wife said, but Gopal, there are no cows. And Gopal said, exactly my point. This is our problem, you see. When something is very simple, the mind doesn't keep it simple. You know it. You're all looking at me as you know it. Because we complicate it. You realize children don't complicate their existence. For them it's very straightforward. But when we get older, it's surprising. The greatest obstacle to our self-realization is because we have uncontrolled desires. And desires lead to expectations lead to speculation, and we plan, but nothing has happened yet. Nothing has happened. So we should be very careful about not complicating our lives. I like the saying, don't complicate life. Tired? Rest. Overthinking? Breathe. Made a mistake? Own it. You want respect? Give it. You feel angry? Please walk away. You feel jealous? Focus on yourself. You want to grow? Learn daily. If you feel empty, serve, help someone. If you need peace, let's go. Keep your life simple. It's very important. Otherwise, a complicated life is a very imbalanced life. And this is where we need to appreciate what we have. Because if you don't appreciate what you have, then your hankering for something else will depreciate the value of what you already have. Sometimes we have the most precious object of affection with us, but we're looking everywhere else for something. And that's how imbalance comes into our life. So you see, balance is not just about allocation of time. It's deeper. And that's why I wanted to share some time with you. That's why we organized this for you. Because the Geeta's version of balance is deep. It's about how you view life. It's about distinguishing between needs and wants. Everybody wants something. But does everybody need that want? If you need it, it is meant for you. Striving for it is positive. But if you just want something that you don't need, then you start complicating your life. That's a very important thing. And if you become greedy but you're not grateful for what you have, then gratitude is driven away by greed. And that's very important. So our real wealth is how many lives have we really touched? How many people's lives we have been able to do something for? That is the greatest satisfaction and balance that we can bring. I want to end by giving you this idea of area of influence. When you sit down and look at the area of your influence, you realize your area of influence is very small. It's your words, your behavior, your actions. Isn't it true? Everything else actually is outside your area of influence. The problem is we spend more time outside that circle, trying to do things when we cannot have any influence over them. It is better, the Geeta says, to concentrate on the basic of all basics. What can I say? What can I do in behavior? And most importantly, can I control my own actions? That will be a big step towards balance. And the last principle is the principle of unity in diversity. Unity in diversity is so important. It brings so much balance, not just to us, but to communities and even to the world. The problem in this world today is when there is something diverse, we condemn it. We want everything to go the way we want it to. But we don't allow room for diversity. If you have 3 children and one child thinks very differently, you come down very hard on that child generally, because you want them to conform the way the other 2 are. If someone thinks out of the box, no, it's not good. You should be thinking in the box. We don't celebrate diversity, but we want unity. But in the Gita, celebrating diversity is very important. Krishna says, all paths eventually lead to me. But there are many paths. And that path must be respected as a diverse path. We all have a different journey today. And we all at different levels of different journeys. So celebrating diversity is very important. 4 blind men were walking down the road. My last story for the day. Okay? And while they were walking down the road, they bumped into an object. The first blind man said, "My brothers, there is a large snake and it is twining itself around my neck." The second blind man said, "You're wrong. It is a sharp sword that is piercing my cheek." The third blind man said, "You're both wrong. I'm feeling this large canvas in front of me. It's like a huge space." And the fourth blind man said, "My brothers, you're all wrong. I am putting my hands around a huge pillar and it seems to be very large." Now the 4 blind men all bumped into one object. It was an elephant. The first blind man felt the trunk of the elephant, thought it was a snake. Second felt the tusk, thought it was a sword. The third felt the side of the elephant, thought it was a huge space of leather. The fourth actually felt the leg of the elephant and thought it was a pillar. Now the important thing here is, all 4 of them actually factually experienced what they did. Am I right? They did. The experience was real. But to say that their experience was the only real experience is not right. It was their experience. If I felt a tusk, it was my experience, it's real. But you could have felt something else. And I have to respect your experience. So that's a very important thing in unity and diversity. This is a nice illustration. So they were not wrong in their experience. But to say that my experience is the only real experience, that brings imbalance, not only in your life, but it can bring imbalance in your families. It can bring imbalance in your societies, because you think that you are the only one with the right experience. That is not a spiritual fountain. That's a very disturbing fountain. So, these are the things I wanted to share with you. The only thing you have to do is to think about them. The theories I have presented, but the science is for you to put it into practice. It may not be now, it may be later, but thinking follows after, and then you have feeling, and then you have will. These are 3 very important things. There was a boy, and he was walking by. There were 3 men standing, and he saw them standing under a mango tree. And the 3 of them, they were waiting for this juicy mango to fall. That's all they wanted, to eat the mango. After a while, there was a gust of wind and a bird sat on the branch where the mango was. And the mango dropped. And the 3 men jumped at the mango and they were about to eat it when one of them said, "What do you think caused the mango to drop?" The first man said, "I think it was the weight of the bird." Second man said, "No, gust of wind." Third man who asked the question said, "I think it's a combination of both." and they began arguing amongst each other. They put down the mango because they were so excited about the argument and kept arguing. The boy sees the mango, sees three grown-ups talking, because that's what grown-ups do, they always talk. And he thought this mango looks very good, picked up the mango, walked away, ate it to his satisfaction, and that was a good day for him. The men finished their arguments, looked down, and realized there was no mango. And that is the big problem sometimes with these talks. We talk and talk and talk and talk. Rather, I talk and talk and talk and talk. But after that, you have to taste the mango. You'll have to practice it. You'll have to think about it. You'll have to try and apply it and see where it goes. Thank you very much.